Hey everyone, before we get into today's video, I just wanted to apologize for not getting a video out last night. I had a pretty crazy family emergency, so I just wasn't able to release a video. But anyways, I'm back now, and the daily content will continue as usual. In today's video, I'm going to be featuring another really talented narrator that I think you should all definitely check out. His channel is called Stories After Midnight. If you enjoy his narration, you can find his channel in the description below. All that being said, let's begin on the stories. And remember to always stay hungry. A couple of years ago, I was home alone. At the time, I was still living with my family, but they had gone on vacation and thus I had the house all to myself. Well, I had been working a lot of hours that week, and it was my day off at the time. So I had the idea to call some of the boys for some cold ones. We drank the cold ones, and at around 11 p.m., everyone decided to go home. Drunk and tired, I locked my doors, went upstairs to my room, and then knocked out cold. That is, until I woke up from the ding-dong of my doorbell. It was about 4 a.m. if I can recall correctly. Needless to say, I was still pretty drunk. For a few seconds, I asked myself, what the hell? Not really sure if I'd actually heard the doorbell or if maybe it was just my imagination. So I decided to wait, but then I heard it again. I got up kind of groggy and then went to my hallway and then yelled, "I'll be right there." I headed downstairs. As I made my way down, I started to panic. What if one of my friends got in a crash or never made it home? They weren't drunk like I was when they left, but still, you never really know. Or maybe I thought it was one of them returning for something. As I got to the door, I stupidly decided to open it. Well, it was my ex. For some quick background, me and my ex didn't really end on good terms. We dated for years, she cheated, and I was absolutely heartbroken, and we went back and forth like that. It literally took me about a whole year and a half to get over her, mainly by blocking her number all over social media and even on email. Yes, she actually tried to contact me there as well. To put it kindly, she really filled the crazy ex stereotype. Plus, it had maybe been about 3 months since I finally cut her off, so needless to say, I was pretty confused. When I opened the door, I just said, hi, in a really shy manner. Really confused, I then asked her, "What are you doing here, Jenny?" She just said, "I wanted to see you and talk a little bit." So then I said, "You know what time it is, right?" And then she replied with, "I know it's late, but I'm on my way to school and I wanted to stop by. Since it's on the way, I figured you'd be home alone." Now, this definitely weirded me out because how the hell did she know that? My family isn't in contact as far as I knew, and I had my family block her off their social media as well. So I then asked her, how did you know that?" "Oh, I just knew," she said. We kind of just paused and she asked me if she could come inside to talk. And stupidly, I said okay. After coming inside, she pet my dogs and we went to my living room and then sat down. We talked about how we were both doing really great in life, and then, just what I expected, she basically begged me to take her back. I said no, and she began to cry, and so did I. Well, one thing led to another, and then to my room, and I guess you can imagine what occurred next. I was feeling pretty guilty and regretful as soon as we finished, and I made the excuse that I had to work the next day. She then began pleading to let her stay, and I kept saying no, which she then began screaming at me that I was using her. To which I replied some pretty mean things, and then I kicked her out. So I thought that was that. Wrong. After about 20 minutes, I had returned to my room until I heard a pounding on my door. Pretty much instantly I knew who it was, and I went to open the door. It was of course my ex. She then came inside my house without even asking me. She looked really flustered, like she had just went on a jog or something, and she definitely still looked angry. But there was one thing, my gut feeling, and it was telling me something was off. When she came inside, I noticed that one of my dogs began to make a low growl at her. Now, this never really occurs since they've known her for over 2 years and they usually really liked her. I noticed it, but just kept my cool. I asked her what she wanted and if she would just leave already. She then just looked at me with these piercing eyes and then said to me in a shaking voice, "Why do you always do this?" Then she got closer to me. At the same time, I want you to keep in mind that she was wearing a zip-up hoodie that had 2 pockets on each side. She had her right hand free, but she had the other one in her pocket. I wasn't 100% sure, but I could tell that she was gripping something. My mind then raced, and then I thought, crap, I'm about to get stabbed to death by my crazy ex and not be found until my family comes back. Almost on cue, right after thinking this, my second dog then starts barking like absolutely crazy at her. My dog's name is Ash, and she's a pretty weird dog. She's really lazy and she rarely ever barks at anything, and especially at people. So this, on top of my ex giving me this really weird feeling, actually made me a little scared. To which I then told Jenny, "Look, I'm really sorry what happened, but it was a mistake. I really have to work and you really need to leave already." This totally lit the fuse. She went totally ballistic. I'm talking spitting in my face and strained red eyes while yelling at me. To be honest, I can't really remember what she had yelled about, but it probably wasn't good. And the entire time of her rant, she never once took her hand out of her pocket. She did finally calm down though, and she pretty much just stood there inches away from my face, breathing really heavy. And my dog still barking at her the entire time. The look on her face that she had is the one that you can tell someone wants to do or say something, but they're just holding back from doing what they really want to do by like a threat of mental power or something. Personally, I really didn't want to find out what was in her pocket or what she wanted to do to me. So really annoyed and very much worried after this verbal onslaught, I just simply told her, "Get the hell out of my house or I'm calling the cops." Very angrily, she then paused and then she said, "You're gonna regret this." And then finally she left. I locked my door after that, went straight to my room, and then looked out my window for the next few hours. Thankfully, she didn't come back. Since that day, I haven't seen or talked to my ex. I'm not really sure if I was just being paranoid or if I really was about to regret letting her inside. Hopefully I won't ever have to see her again. I would like to make something abundantly clear in the beginning of this. I was very naive in my youth. Again, very naive. While my ex was very emotionally, sexually, and mentally abusive, he was smart enough to never lay a hand on me physically. He used gaslighting, manipulation, and carefully hidden sadism to control me for 8 years. I always forgave him for every slight against me, every instance of cruelty, every mental assault, and every sexual attack as well. I always forgave him because I thought he loved me and that I was his property, because we'd been together for a really long time and I wore his promise ring. In my mind, I was dealing with a lot of actions that would eventually go away with age. I was 17 years old when I finally got the courage to leave him. Since then though, he's left me messages on my Facebook, my phone, my email, and he's even called me from texting apps as well. He always leaves the same message. "I'm still here." Every month like clockwork. Same time, same day, and same message. He's done this for 6 years and I couldn't do anything about it. He wasn't breaking any laws, so I couldn't really report him, and no one really cared about it anyway. So I blocked each account and just continued on with my life. But then about 2 months ago, the messages then seemed to completely stop, and I think I know why. I had gotten engaged to another man the same day that he messaged me for the last time, and I decided to post about it on Facebook, and then magically out of nowhere, the messages just stopped. I'm guessing he stopped because I'm going to marry someone else and I'm no longer his property, at least in his mind. This is the only thing that makes sense to me, that he believes I belong to someone else now and not him. But I have a feeling I haven't seen the last of him. But I really hope that's not the case.
I met a guy online back in August of last year. We immediately hit it off. I was reluctant to get in a relationship though, as I had been cheated on a few months prior and lied to that entire relationship. Catching feelings for anyone again scared the hell out of me, but this guy was so sweet and nice that I just trusted him and was willing to risk it for him. Skip to mid-September. We had both admitted feelings for each other a while before this, but he was reluctant to ask me out. I wasn't sure why, but I figured he was just waiting for the right moment. Which he was. Because he slipped that his birthday was coming up, and I pointed out how come he's turning 19 and still in high school. Then he said that he isn't 18, he's 17, and he's turning 18 in a few days. This pissed me off because although we've never been sexual, I'm 18 and I do not like being lied to. We both met in a place that's only for 18 plus people. He pointed out that I never directly asked him his age. I just assumed because of where we met. Despite this, when he turned 18 and asked me out, I said yes. We lasted less than a month. He would start fights every single day over the dumbest stuff. If I took over 10 minutes to reply, he would get pissed and told me I need to tell him when I was gonna go do stuff, so he wasn't waiting for my message. He got mad that I've been in relationships before him, despite none of them turning out good, etc. So I broke up with him. I thought maybe in the future, things would stop because this is his first relationship and he was just inexperienced. I told him multiple times, calmly, that things need to change, and once the fight stopped, we can try again. But they never stopped, for more than a few days. One time he lied to me saying some girl had been flirting with him, and asked if he was single or taken, just so I'd confirm our relationship, which I didn't, because we weren't dating anymore, and he got mad. I pointed out it was obviously a lie, but he insisted it happened. Only later that evening did he admit it was a lie. Eventually, I shut off my Snapchat map because I didn't want him knowing where specifically I lived, and he got mad that I didn't trust him. One of my best IRL friends messaged me asking why he was requesting to follow her. I checked his Instagram, and he had started following everyone who was following me. I told him to unfollow them because he doesn't even know any of them and it's kind of weird. He got mad, but he did unfollow them. 2 weeks ago, I woke up one morning and he told me we needed to talk. He asked me why I've been lying to him, why I've been hiding things behind his back. I asked him what he was talking about because I have never lied to him, nor hid anything from him. He said he's been messaging all my friends on Instagram, asking for information about me, who I've dated, what I've been doing, etc. He asked me why I've been FaceTiming people behind his back, not telling him everything about my past relationships. I don't know if I was more shocked the fact that he did this, or the fact that these people were actually giving him info about me. I never did anything behind his back, though. The only person I had ever FaceTimed me first, randomly, and for 30 minutes just to play 8-ball on iMessage. He even mentioned talking to people who I haven't talked to in months. He also made alternate accounts, befriending people from my past, voice chatting with them, playing games with them, all just to get info from them about me once they opened up. Anyways, he even mentioned that my ex had messaged me, which I never told anyone, so I have no idea how he found that out. My Snapchat kept logging me out, so I think he hacked into my Snapchat to read my convos with people also. He found my old Reddit and went back 2 years of comment history to get mad at stuff I've said in my past. The day after he emailed me saying that there's nothing left to say, we're just acquaintances now, etc., etc. I told him nah, we aren't even acquaintances anymore. He's just some crazy dude I dated. And it's his loss in the end, because he caused this by doing detective work, as he liked to put it. He said he did all this because he was curious, not that he didn't trust me, and he found lots of stuff he didn't want to. I guess about my past relationships, because that's all he ever really mentioned. His little tangent went on for quite a while, saying he's my loss and he could have made me happy and blah blah blah. I told him he never could have made me happy. His money, which wasn't much, maybe, but not him as a person. Not since the first fight started. I'm sure there's a lot of examples I'm missing out on saying, but in the end, I blocked him, and I hope to never see or hear from him again. But I fear after all he's done, that he'll pull some crap from that You show. This isn't so much one encounter, but it was a terrifying experience. I've never told this story to anyone, besides the police, but I've been thinking a lot about it lately, and only recently realized how much the whole thing really messed me up. So here goes. I met this guy at the bar one night. We had a great time, partied all night, and eventually ended up back at my apartment. After that night, he basically lived with me instead of the hostel he was staying at. We clicked right away, and I enjoyed having him there. We dated for about 3 months before the first night he attacked me. It was the night of my 30th birthday. We celebrated, had a blast, and passed out at about 3 a.m. He told me he suffered from PTSD and night terrors. He had woken up many nights freaking out. I was deeply passed out when I awoke to 5 quick blows to the head and face. I tried to cover myself, not knowing at all what the hell was happening, when I realized my arms were pinned at my sides. He was sitting on my chest with his legs on my arms and strangling me before I had any idea where I even was. I only remember the light fading and going black as he squeezed harder on my neck. When he let go, the blood eventually rushed back to my brain, and I remember seeing him walk to the bathroom. At that point, I grabbed the dogs and ran to my car and took off. He must have passed back out. He called me hours later, completely confused as to where I went. I told him everything he had done, and he promised me he didn't mean to do any of that. He would never do that on purpose, and he promised to seek help. I agreed to come back on the terms if he even scared me again, he'd be gone. Exactly 1 week later, again in my sleep, I woke up to him on top of me. But not doing anything, I slowly pushed him off and pretended to be getting ready for work. Out of nowhere, he jumped up and sucker punched me in the mouth. I fell onto the bed, and he again tried to strangle me this time. I didn't fight and pretended to pass out. He let me go once he thought I passed out and went to the kitchen. As soon as he left, I grabbed the dogs again and booked it to the car. I jumped in the car and locked it. This time he chased me. That was when I realized this wasn't some PTSD nightmare sleepwalking freakout. He was a psychopath. He was awake and very coherent. He was screaming that he'd burn my house down if I didn't come out, trying to break the windows to get into my car. As soon as I got the doors locked, I called the cops. He went back inside. When the cops arrived, I told him he's crazy and might try to attack them. When they went in, he was quietly waiting for them and went with them without any resistance. He knew what he did. It wasn't until during the trial I found out that there was a knife in my bed. When he let go of me and went to the kitchen thinking I was passed out, he went to get a butcher's knife and left it on the bed when he chased me out. No one can prove what he was planning, but I'm convinced he was going to stab me to death. He wasn't charged with anything in the end, because the DA pulled some fancy lawyering maneuvers and tricked him into walking right into the arms of ICE as soon as he left the courthouse. I have to say that was satisfying to watch. He was deported and banned from the country. He still tries to contact me on social media by making new accounts to try to get me to help with his appeal to be allowed back. Nope. He still claims he wasn't awake for any of this. I don't know what I believe, but I know I feel a hell of a lot safer with him on the other side of the globe. I've been having a hard time sleeping since then. I kind of brushed everything off and carried on with my life as if none of this ever happened. Thinking about it recently, I realized being attacked in your sleep and coming that close to possibly being a murder victim might cause some lasting psychological damage. I am considering seeking help. I think maybe sharing the story for once might be a healthy first step.
This took place about 2 years ago when I was 20 years old, so my memory is a little foggy. The story's about my best friend's crazy ex-boyfriend. It doesn't really affect me as much as it affected her. However, I was there for the whole ordeal. The last guy was a creep, but this one totally takes the cake. You see, my friend kind of has a type. Despite her being this really beautiful, cheerful girl, she loves to find guys that want her to do everything for them. They want her to literally pay for everything and do everything for them, periodically paying for groceries just to make it even. Now, I don't really have any issues with her dating a guy down on his luck, and working hard to get on his feet. We've almost all been there. That's fine. Some just have to start from the ground up, and that's fine. But this guy wasn't like that. We're talking him being a straight-up male gold digger. This guy had no intention of ever trying to better himself or his position. He was a user and an abuser, and I could tell that from the very second I met him. When I walked into her apartment, I then saw this guy sitting on her couch, and my heart fell. He gave me really bad vibes, even worse than the last. I'm not going to describe him because, quite honestly, his looks don't really have anything to do with just how terrible of a person he was. I didn't like him, but I always played nice because I just wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. I thought, maybe I'm being too judgmental. It's not really fair of me to judge him like that when we've just met. Well, as it turns out, my gut feeling was right though. Fast forward a few months later and I had moved about 8 hours away to a new school for university. My friend Emmy and her family went to a nearby city to visit her sister, so I then met them there and we stayed a night there. We had met up and went to lunch, and while there, she then started telling me about this jerk she was dating. I had known that he moved in with her and would always borrow her car, so that really didn't surprise me. What was a surprise though was that she actually wanted to dump him. She was telling me how he had become increasingly more territorial, always checking her phone and literally always wanting to know where she was. He was also becoming pretty verbally and physically abusive when she wouldn't comply. Initially, she was just thinking about dumping him, and I also started to encourage her to do that. I was really worried about her safety and mental health, especially with living with someone like that. And it also seemed to sound like all of his angry outbursts were just getting more frequent. She seemed to become more determined, and she said that she planned to break up with him when she got home. I told her that when she does that, she should probably take someone with her so that he doesn't try and hurt her. She then dismissed me, saying that he wouldn't do that, and I then warned her. Look, guys like this are really unstable. He's going to do one of 3 things. 1, verbally attack you. 2, physically attack you. Or 3, he's probably going to threaten suicide if you try and leave him. Or maybe even all 3 of those if he's crazy enough. She just laughed me off, and that was the end of the conversation. We went on with the day, shopping, going to dinner, and then watching a movie. We had slept together on the pull-out couch, and it was a pretty laid-back night. At around 7 a.m., I was then woken up to her crying on the phone. I didn't really move at first, as I was really just listening to what was happening. She was then pacing on the other side of the room, then pretty much crying and begging him to stop. He was calling her all kinds of names and accusing her of cheating on him. He was screaming so loudly on the phone that even I could hear him.
You're such a whore. If you give me an STD, I'm going to kill you and your entire family.
She was just sobbing the whole time.
I'm going to freaking throw your car keys off of a bridge and burn your car, you stupid whore.
I honestly couldn't believe what I was hearing. Hell, I still don't believe it. My memory is usually crap, but I remember it clearly. I then got up and then took the phone from her, then doing something that I probably shouldn't have done, but thankfully it didn't really have any repercussions. And then I started screaming at him. I dare you to touch her car. Do it. Touch it and you're going to jail. I'm a witness now. Go ahead and try it, little boy. I hung up the phone and then threw it on the bed, then asking her what the hell happened. Apparently, since she didn't answer his phone call at 4 a.m, he assumed that she was cheating on him. He kept calling back. One of the times I answered, I told him to stop or I'd call the police for harassment. When he kept going on, I really didn't know what to do. She was a mess and I was way too angry to think at the time. I went into her parents' room and I woke her mom up. This may be weird to some, but I've known her since we were kids and I'm really close to her family. Also, her mother the night before actually tried to beg me to get them to break up. Her mom is very kind and really involved in her life and her friends' lives as well. So while this may be weird to some, it's pretty normal for us. I told her mom what had happened, and while doing that, her dad woke up, and he was immediately furious. Her dad stepped in, answering the phone and threatening to call the car in stolen, since it was actually his name that was on the car and not my friend's. He then told the crazy boyfriend to leave it at the apartment. After all of that, I go home. On the way home, I decided to call her and she told me that he was texting her saying he was going to kill himself if she left him. She was starting to feel guilty and actually scared he would actually do it. The cold-hearted part of me told her to call his dad and tell him. In my mind, it was his family's problem, not hers. They really need to help him if he's having mental distress. I mean, it's not her fault. Unfortunately, they dated another 5 months after this happened. What got them to break up? Not the abuse, not the crazy, not the fact that he had a warrant out for his arrest in Florida for a traffic violation, or the fact that he had a relationship with a minor there as well. Not the fact that he had a crazy ex-girlfriend who went to my friend's city and threatened to beat her up for him. Not the fact that he would shoplift hundreds of dollars worth of items from Wally World. Nope. They broke up because he ended up going to jail. I don't remember why, but I'm pretty sure it was the shoplifting. I could ask her, but I don't like to bring him up to her. It's been about a year or two now, and she's raising his dog that he had gotten as a puppy before he was arrested. That really worries me that he may come back someday for his dog, and knowing her, she just might go back to him. I'm pretty sure he hated me or still hates me because I threatened to call the cops on him. And if I have to, I still will. I'm not really sure where he is now, if he's still in jail or if he's out. Not even sure what state he's in. No matter where he is though, I just really hope he stays the hell away from my friend, and for good. My husband had dated a beauty queen title holder whom he had broke up with long before we ever met. However, I was the first really serious girlfriend that he had dated after they broke up. And well, once she knew about me, our lives became a living nightmare for a while. I guess she always figured that he would go back to her because she was so beautiful. And on top of being really crazy, she was also a narcissist. Anyway, we start dating and then the phone calls start. She would always call over and over all hours of the night, forcing my husband to then switch off his phone. So it escalated. I began to start getting flat tires on my car. Then I started noticing random dents in my car as well. I had no proof this was her, of course, but it seemed pretty coincidental. She then started calling and threatening my husband that if he doesn't give her money, she'll call the police and then report him that he used to abuse her. My husband was pretty worried because, well, he wasn't really guilty of doing any of this, but it would be her word against his, and his reputation would be pretty much ruined. One night she approached me at a party when I came out of the bathroom, but it was more like she ambushed me. "So where's your man at? You should keep an eye on your man," she had slurred in her heavy accent. It was kind of intimidating because she's over 6 feet tall and I'm only 5'5", and she was in heels at the time, so she was literally about 6'5", no joke. She had totally towered over me. I pretty much just ignored her at this point and then walked away, but then she followed me. Not really saying anything though, just kept up the pace and walked beside me, sort of bending forward to be more on eye level with me, looking straight at me with really crazy eyes, but walking and grinning really creepily. After that happened, we pretty much just stopped going to any kind of events if we had any inkling that she would be there as well. However, we did attend a funeral for a mutual friend of ours. During the reception, I was talking to a couple that I knew, and she just walked up right beside me and stood with us. She pretty much just stood there as if part of the conversation. Not talking, just standing there and listening to our intimate group of 3. She was completely nuts. I didn't want to cause a scene at a funeral, so I walked back to my husband who had just been talking to the man's widow. That was the final straw. We got a lawyer who sent her a cease and desist. It didn't even faze her. She would then call my husband from private numbers and then say, "Hi, it's me," in a sing-song voice like nothing even happened. 3 cease and desist letters later, and she was still calling. We were eventually finally able to get a restraining order against her. I really used to be so intimidated by her. She was tall, blonde, and pretty statuesque. She was the epitome of a beauty queen. However, as I got to realize who she truly was, I began to realize that she was the ugliest person I had ever met, despite her outside appearance. Whenever I see a picture of her, all I see are her mean, cold eyes. I don't see any beauty in her whatsoever. I used to think that beauty pageants were so much more than skin deep, that contestants were judged for more than just their looks. However, in this case, I was so wrong. I also found out that we were apparently not the only ones who had to file a restraining order against her. We haven't seen her in years since this all happened, although we still to this day continuously get these fake Instagram follow requests that we know are her. I know this because she's actually dumb enough to always have herself as a follower or her brother, or she'll follow random people in our lives, like my husband's colleagues or my mom, which is absolutely insane to me. I just don't know why she won't let go already. My husband and I have a baby now, and I'm always vigilant. I honestly really don't know what she's capable of. This woman once had the whole world at her feet. She had a platform that would have given her opportunities that the rest of us might never have. But I guess she just wanted money with the minimal amount of work involved. All she ever did was cheat and use people. It's awful. The last I heard, she became an escort, and she apparently lives in a shelter now. Clearly there's some major mental issues at play here, but I mean, she was a terrible, selfish person long before that. So to the crazy beauty queen, ex-girlfriend from hell, I really hope you get the help that you need and that me nor my husband ever see you again. Please.